Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a place where the sun rises differently than anywhere else on Earth, where the morning mist floats just above the water like a whisper, where ancient trees stand so tall they seem to hold up the sky itself, where every leaf, every stone, every drop of water carries a story, waiting to be told. This is Africa. Not the Africa of maps and textbooks, but the real Africa, the breathing, living, feeling Africa, where the rivers have memories, where the jungle has a heartbeat, and where, if you listen closely enough, you can hear the earth itself telling you something important. This is where our story begins. Deep inside the most beautiful corner of this ancient jungle, there was a river. Not just any river. This river was alive. It sang in the morning, it whispered at night. The animals came to it for water, but somehow they always left with something more, a sense of peace, a feeling of belonging, as if the river knew them, as if the river cared. And on the banks of this river, two very different lives were quietly falling apart. The first was Pango. Pango was a pangolin, small, covered in hard, beautiful scales that looked like armor from the outside, but inside he was anything but tough. He was soft, sensitive, deeply, painfully shy. Every single morning, Pango would wake up alone in his little burrow beneath the roots of an old mango tree. He would stretch his tiny claws, blink his small eyes into the morning light, and take a deep breath before facing the world. And facing the world was not easy for Pango. The other animals never really understood him. The zebras thought he was too quiet. The monkeys thought he was too serious. The elephants barely noticed him at all. And so, day after day, Pango moved through the jungle like a shadow, present but unseen. There, but somehow not quite there. His only comfort was the river. Every afternoon, when the sun was high and the jungle was buzzing with life, Pango would make his way to the riverbank. He would sit at the edge of the water, dip his claws gently into the cool current, and just breathe. The river never judged him. The river never looked at him strangely. The river simply accepted him. And for Pango, that was everything. But even the river couldn't fill the emptiness he felt inside. Because what Pango wanted, what he needed more than anything in the world, was not water. It was connection. It was someone who would look at him and say, "I see you, I know you, and I choose to stay." He had never had that. Not once in his entire life. The second was Pingy. Pingy was a penguin. And yes, before you ask, a penguin in an African jungle is exactly as unusual as it sounds. Nobody knew quite how Pingy had ended up so far from the cold, icy shores where penguins belong. Perhaps the winds had carried him, perhaps the currents had brought him. Perhaps the universe, in its strange and mysterious way, had simply decided that this was exactly where Pingy needed to be. But the jungle did not agree. From the moment Pingy arrived, he was different. Completely, obviously, undeniably different. He waddled when others walked. He had flippers when others had wings or paws. He was black and white in a world of greens and browns and golds. And no matter how hard he tried, he just didn't fit. The monkeys laughed when they saw him walk. The parrots mimicked his waddling and burst into screeching laughter. Even the gentle deer looked at him with confused, pitying eyes before slowly walking away. "You don't belong here," a young monkey had told him on his very first day. Those 4 words had never left him. You don't belong here. Pingy had tried to shake them off. He had tried to be cheerful, to be helpful, to make himself useful to the other animals. But kindness, it seemed, was not enough to overcome being different. And so, slowly, painfully, Pingy had stopped trying. Now he spent his days standing at the edge of the river, staring at the water, watching his own reflections stare back at him. A penguin in a jungle, a creature out of place, a heart without a home. He had almost forgotten what it felt like to smile. And so there they were, two souls on opposite banks of the same river, both alone, both aching, both quietly wondering if the world had any place for them at all. They had seen each other before, of course. In a jungle, you notice the ones who are also alone. There is an unspoken recognition between lonely hearts, a glance held a second too long, a nod that carries more meaning than words could. But they had never spoken. Until the day everything changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon, though of course the animals of the jungle did not count days the way we do. To them it was simply an afternoon, like any other. The sun was warm, the river was singing its soft, endless song, the birds were calling to each other in the canopy above. Pango had come to the river, as he always did. He walked carefully along the muddy bank, searching for his favorite spot, a smooth, flat rock just at the water's edge where he liked to sit and think. The ground was wet from the morning rain. The mud was soft and slippery beneath his small feet. He should have been more careful. He leaned just a little too far over the water, trying to see a flash of silver beneath the surface. His front paw slipped on the wet mud. He scrambled, he grabbed, he tried with everything he had to catch himself. But it was too late. With a terrific cry and a tremendous splash, Pango fell into the river. The cold hit him like a wall. The current grabbed him immediately, pulling him downstream with shocking force. Pango was many things, brave in his quiet way, resilient, determined, but he was not a swimmer. His heavy scales, which protected him so well on land, were dragging him down. "Help!" he screamed, his head barely above the churning water. The birds in the trees looked down. The monkeys paused their playing. The deer at the water's edge lifted their heads. And then they all looked away. Not out of cruelty, perhaps, but out of fear, out of that terrible, all too human, all too animal instinct to protect yourself first. The current was strong, the river was dangerous, and Pango, well, Pango was not their problem. He was going under. And then a splash, bigger than Pango's, faster, more deliberate. Pingy did not think. He did not calculate the risks, or consider the current, or wonder whether this was wise. He simply saw a living creature in danger, and he moved. Because that is who Pingy was, underneath all the loneliness and the rejection and the years of being told he didn't belong. Underneath it all, Pingy was someone who cared. He hit the water cleanly. Penguins, whatever their other shortcomings in a jungle environment, are extraordinary swimmers, and he cut through the current like an arrow. He reached Pango in seconds. He got beneath him, supporting his weight, and with powerful strokes of his flippers, he drove them both toward the bank. It felt like forever. It was probably 30 seconds. And then they were on the bank, gasping, soaking, alive. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Pango lay on his side, coughing up river water, his scales plastered with mud. Pingy sat beside him, breathing hard, water streaming from his black and white feathers. The jungle was very quiet. Then Pango slowly, carefully, opened one eye. He saw a penguin. He blinked. He opened both eyes. Still a penguin. "You," Pango whispered, "you jumped in, for me." Pingy looked at him for a moment. Then, for the first time in longer than he could remember, he smiled. "Of course," he said simply. "You needed help." 3 words, so small, so ordinary, and yet, to Pango, they were the most extraordinary words he had ever heard, because in those 3 words was something he had spent his whole life searching for. Someone who saw him, someone who chose him, someone who said, without hesitation, "You matter enough to save." They sat together on that muddy river bank until the sun began to sink behind the trees, and the sky turned gold and pink and deep, burning orange. They talked, slowly at first, carefully, the way you do when you are not quite sure if this beautiful thing in front of you is real. Pango told Pingy about his burrow beneath the mango tree, about the loneliness, about how he curled into a ball not just from danger, but from the weight of feeling unwanted. And Pingy told Pango about the ice and the ocean he had left behind, about the monkey's words that still echoed in his chest, about standing at the river every day, looking at his reflection, wondering if he would ever feel like he belonged anywhere. And as they talked, something extraordinary happened. The loneliness lifted. Not completely, not all at once, but enough. Like the first ray of sunlight breaking through clouds after a long gray storm. Just enough light to remind you that warmth still exists in the world. That night, for the first time in years, both Pango and Pingy went to sleep, smiling. The days that followed were unlike anything either of them had ever known. Pango taught Pingy the secrets of the jungle floor.